The great space station called Unity's Promise floated in the void between worlds like a giant metal flower. Jake Morrison looked out at the stars through the massive window in his guest room and felt the weight of history pressing down on his shoulders. Tomorrow would change everything for humanity one way or another. Jake was an admiral in the Human Federation Navy, but today he wore simple clothes like any other diplomat. He had come to Kepler Prime with the most important mission of his life. The Galactic Federation wanted to sign a peace treaty with humans, and Jake was here to make it happen. After 50 years of being the new kids in space, humanity was finally going to be equal partners with the great alien races. Helen Carter knocked on his door and walked in without waiting. She was the lead diplomat for Earth and had spent her whole career preparing for this moment. Her brown hair was pulled back in a neat style, and her green eyes showed both excitement and worry. "The Zephyrians want to add another clause about trade routes," she said, holding a data pad. "Nothing major, but they seem very eager to get this signed." Jake nodded and took the pad from her. The Zephyrians were tall blue creatures with 4 arms, and they controlled most of the shipping lanes in this part of space. Their leader, Admiral Kethril, had been very friendly during the talks. Maybe too friendly, Jake thought, but he pushed the worry away. "Where is Ryan?" Jake asked about Colonel Ryan Brooks, their military advisor. "Still going over security arrangements with Station Command," Helen replied. "He does not trust anyone these days." Ryan Brooks had good reason to be careful. He had fought in the border wars against pirates and had seen what happened when humans let their guard down. He was a tall man with gray hair and scars on his hands from old battles. Some people called him paranoid, but Jake knew Ryan was just thorough. The door chimed again, and Captain Lisa Barnes entered. She was young for a captain, only 32, but she had the best mind for languages that Jake had ever seen. Her job was to watch for any problems in communication between the different species. "Sir, I need to show you something," Lisa said, her voice tight with concern. She activated her portable computer and played back a recording from the morning session. On the screen, Jake could see the alien delegates talking during a break. The Zephyrians were speaking with the Crystalline Collective, strange beings that looked like walking gems. Next to them stood representatives from the Vorthan Republic, who resembled large insects, and the Nexari Dominion, gray-skinned humanoids with big black eyes. "Watch their body language," Lisa said, pointing at the screen. "See how they keep looking at our delegation? And listen to the frequency patterns." She adjusted some controls, and suddenly, Jake could hear strange harmonics underneath the normal conversation. It sounded like music, but Lisa's computer was showing it as coded language. "They are talking in a frequency that most species cannot hear," Lisa explained. "My software picked it up by accident when I was calibrating for the Vorthan dialect." Jake felt his stomach drop. "What are they saying?" "I am still working on the translation, but I caught a few phrases. Something about cleansing and dawn and timing." Helen moved closer to the screen. "Could it be innocent? Maybe they are planning a ceremony?" Lisa shook her head. "The word pattern suggests secrecy and urgency. They do not want anyone to understand this conversation." The door opened again, and Dr. Alan Foster walked in. He was an older man with a white beard who had spent 20 years studying alien languages. He looked worried as he carried his own data pad. "Admiral, I think we have a problem," Alan said without greeting anyone. "I have been reviewing the linguistic patterns from all our meetings, and something is very wrong." Jake gestured for everyone to sit down. "Tell me." Alan activated his pad and showed complex wave patterns. Each species has been using specific code words throughout the negotiations, words that have double meanings in their languages. When Lisa showed me her frequency recordings, I was able to decode some of them. He paused and looked around the room. "They are planning something called Operation Cleansing Dawn. From what I can translate, it appears to be a coordinated military action." "Against who?" Helen asked, though Jake could see in her eyes that she already knew the answer. "Against human colonies," Alan said quietly. "They plan to strike immediately after the treaty is signed, when our leadership is gathered here, and our defenses are focused on celebration." The room went silent, except for the hum of the station's life support systems. Jake felt 20 years of military training kick in as his mind started working through the implications. 4 alien powers working together against humanity. It would be a slaughter. Are you certain about this? He asked. Lisa nodded. I have recorded 12 separate conversations now. They think we cannot understand their hidden frequencies. The Zephyrians seem to be coordinating everything. What about the other species, the ones not represented here? Most of them are client states or too weak to matter, Alan replied. These 4 powers control most of the galaxy's military strength. Jake stood up and walked to the window again. Outside he could see ships from all the allied species docked to Unity's Promise. Humans had come here in good faith, believing they were joining a community of peaceful civilizations. Instead, they had walked into a trap. How long do we have? He asked. The treaty signing is scheduled for tomorrow at noon, Helen said. If their timing is coordinated with that, then we have less than 18 hours, Jake finished. Ryan Brooks chose that moment to enter the room. He took one look at their faces and immediately drew his sidearm, checking the corridor behind him. What is the situation? He asked in his professional soldier voice. Jake quickly explained what they had discovered. Ryan listened without interruption, his face growing darker with each detail. Recommendations? Jake asked when he finished. Evacuate immediately, Ryan said without hesitation. Get our people off this station and warn Earth. If we run now, they will know we discovered their plan, Helen pointed out. They might accelerate their timeline. If we stay, we die, Ryan countered. Jake looked at each of his team members. These were good people who had trusted him to lead them safely through the most important diplomatic mission in human history. Now he had to decide whether to risk their lives or the lives of billions back home. There is a third option, he said slowly. We pretend we know nothing, and we spring our own trap. Helen looked confused, but Lisa and Alan were nodding. Ryan just waited for orders like the soldier he was. What are you thinking, Admiral? Helen asked. Jake smiled for the first time since entering the room. I am thinking that these aliens have made a very big mistake. They assume humans are naive and trusting. They have no idea what we are really capable of when our survival is at stake. He walked to his desk and pulled out a secure communicator that looked like an ordinary pen. Time to activate Protocol 7. Jake Morrison held the small device that looked like an ordinary writing pen, but was actually the most secret communication tool in human space. Protocol 7 was something that most humans did not even know existed. It was the plan that nobody wanted to use, but everyone hoped would never be needed. Helen Carter stared at the device with wide eyes. Jake, what exactly is Protocol 7? Something that General Patricia Wells created before she died, Jake replied, pressing a sequence of buttons on the pen. She believed that any species entering galactic politics should have a backup plan for betrayal. The device beeped softly and a holographic display appeared in the air above it. Jake typed in his authorization codes while Ryan Brooks moved to guard the door. They could not afford to be interrupted now. Wells was paranoid, Helen said, but her voice showed respect rather than criticism. Wells was smart, Jake corrected. She spent her whole career studying military history. Every alliance eventually breaks down, and every treaty gets violated when it becomes convenient. The display showed a map of human space with hundreds of blinking dots. Each dot represented a hidden asset that had been placed during the past 50 years of human expansion. Some were weapons, others were people, and many were things that the aliens would never suspect. Lisa Barnes moved closer to the display. Are those what I think they are? Sleeper agents, hidden bases, disguised warships, and emergency protocols, Jake confirmed. Every human world has them. Every trade route is monitored. Every diplomatic mission carries more than just diplomats. Doctor. Alan Foster was studying the display with the intensity he usually reserved for alien languages. This is incredible. How many people know about this? Need to know basis only, Ryan said from his position by the door. But every military commander above colonel rank has sealed orders that activate under specific conditions. Jake finished entering his codes and the display shifted to show communication channels opening across human space. Within minutes, responses began appearing as distant commanders acknowledged the Protocol 7 activation. Captain Sam Mitchell aboard the New Horizon confirms receipt. Jake read from the scrolling text. Agent Nick Turner in Zephyrian Space acknowledges. Dr. Emma Rodriguez at the Crystalline Research Station is standing by. Helen looked confused. Emma Rodriguez? I thought she was doing xenobiology research. She is, Jake said with a grim smile. Among other things, Turner has been gathering intelligence on Zephyrian military installations for 3 years while working as a trade representative. Rodriguez has been studying crystalline technology and finding ways to disrupt their power systems. The responses kept coming in. Tony Clark confirmed that hidden defense systems were powering up around major human colonies. Commander Beth Hughes reported that evacuation protocols were beginning for frontier settlements. Dr. Kevin Ross acknowledged receipt from his medical research facility. My God, Helen whispered. How long has this been going on? Since first contact, Ryan replied. Every human expansion was planned with defense in mind. Every research mission had a secondary intelligence gathering objective. Every trade agreement included hidden monitoring clauses. Jake was reading the incoming reports with growing satisfaction. Joey Barnes confirms that maintenance infiltration of Unity's promise is complete. Amy Johnson reports that communication hardening is active across all networks. Danny White acknowledges that the Merchant Defense Force is ready for deployment. Lisa looked up from her own computer where she was monitoring alien communications. The aliens are still proceeding with their normal schedule. They have no idea that anything has changed. Good, Jake said. The longer they remain ignorant, the better our chances. Alan was studying personnel files that had appeared on the display. Some of these people have been deep cover for decades. This Agent Turner has a complete Zephyrian identity and family. The commitment required is enormous, Jake agreed, but it was necessary. We learned early that surviving in galactic politics requires more than good intentions. Ryan moved away from the door and joined them around the display. What about military assets? If they are planning a coordinated strike, we need to be able to fight back. Jake switched the display to show hidden military resources. Every merchant vessel in the fleet carries concealed weapon systems. Cargo ships become gunships with the right activation codes. Research stations transform into sensor networks and communication hubs. The New Horizon that Sam Mitchell commands is actually a mobile command center, he continued. Those mining stations near the outer colonies are really fortress platforms. And those peaceful scientific expeditions have been mapping every alien military installation for 50 years. Helen was beginning to understand the scope of the preparation. This is not just a defense plan. This is a complete shadow military. Built by paranoid humans who remembered every betrayal in Earth's history, Jake confirmed. Wars start when one side believes the other is helpless. Our job was to make sure that assumption would be wrong. The display chimed and new information appeared. Dr. Rebecca Hall reported from her research facility that reverse-engineered alien technology was ready for deployment. Captain Eric Stone confirmed that the hidden strike fleet was moving into position. Agent Grace Miller acknowledged receipt from deep inside Vorthan territory. How many agents do we have? Lisa asked, watching the report stream in. Enough, Jake replied. Every major alien civilization has humans working inside their infrastructure. Some are spies, others are just humans doing normal jobs who happen to be very observant. Alan pulled up a file showing communication intercepts. This is remarkable. Our people have been gathering intelligence on alien military capabilities, political structures, and technological weaknesses for decades. Knowledge is power, Ryan said, and power is survival. Jake activated another section of the display. Commander Paul Anderson reports that the Prometheus project is ready for activation. Dr. Laura Thompson confirms that xenobiology countermeasures are prepared for deployment. What is the Prometheus project? Helen asked. Automated defense platforms that can be rapidly deployed around any threatened world, Jake explained. Anderson's engineering corps has been building them in secret for 10 years. Each platform has enough firepower to cripple a battle fleet. The reports kept coming as human agents across the galaxy confirmed their readiness. Some were soldiers, others were scientists. Many were ordinary civilians who had volunteered to spend their lives in alien territories, just in case this day came. The Psychological Warfare Division reports ready, Jake read. They have been preparing evidence packages showing alien government corruption and oppression of younger species. If this goes public, it will destroy their credibility across the galaxy. Lisa was monitoring alien communications on her own equipment. They are still completely unaware. Admiral Kethril just sent a message to his fleet commanders confirming the attack schedule for tomorrow. Perfect, Jake said. Let them think they hold all the advantages. Helen was studying the personnel files with growing amazement. These people gave up normal lives to serve as our insurance policy. Some of them have been living as aliens for so long that they have alien families and careers. They volunteered, Ryan said simply. They understood that humanity's survival might depend on having eyes and ears everywhere. Jake looked around at his team. This is why we came to the treaty negotiations, not because we trusted the aliens, but because we needed to confirm what they really intended. Now we know. So what happens next? Alan asked. Tomorrow we attend the treaty signing ceremony like nothing has changed, Jake replied. We smile and shake hands and make speeches about peace and cooperation. And when they spring their trap, we spring ours. The display showed that activation confirmations were now coming in from every corner of human space. Decades of careful preparation were about to be tested in the crucible of actual combat. Are you certain this will work? Helen asked. Jake looked at the map showing hundreds of hidden assets scattered across the galaxy, each one representing years of planning and sacrifice by humans who believed in survival through preparation. The aliens are about to learn something important about humanity, he said. We do not just hope for the best. We plan for the worst and prepare to turn any betrayal into our enemy's greatest mistake. The great ceremony hall aboard Unity's Promise sparkled with lights from a dozen different worlds. Thousands of beings from across the galaxy had gathered to witness what they believed would be the dawn of a new age of peace. Jake Morrison wore his best dress uniform and smiled at everyone who approached him, playing the role of the naive human leader perfectly. Admiral Kethril of the Zephyrian Empire stood near the central podium, his four arms gesturing gracefully as he spoke with other alien dignitaries. His blue skin seemed to glow under the ceremonial lights, and his large eyes showed nothing but friendship when he looked toward the human delegation. Jake had to admire the alien's acting ability. Helen Carter moved through the crowd like a seasoned diplomat, shaking hands and exchanging pleasantries with beings who planned to kill her within hours. She had spent the morning reviewing intelligence reports from human agents across the galaxy, but now she appeared completely focused on the ceremony. Such a historic moment, the Crystalline Collective's representative said to Helen, its voice sounding like wind chimes. The being's body was made of what looked like living diamond, beautiful and deadly at the same time. Indeed, Helen replied, with perfect diplomatic warmth. Humanity is honored to join such a distinguished community of civilizations. Dr. Alan Foster stood near the translation equipment, ostensibly there to ensure smooth communication between species. In reality, he was monitoring the hidden frequency conversations that the aliens thought humans could not detect. His earpiece crackled with updates from Lisa Barnes, who was stationed in the communication center. They are maintaining radio silence on the coded channels, Lisa's voice whispered in Alan's ear. But I am picking up increased traffic on military frequencies. Something big is moving out there. Ryan Brooks had positioned himself near the emergency exits, his trained eye cataloging every alien security officer and noting their equipment. Joey Barnes, Lisa's brother, was somewhere in the station's maintenance sections, making final preparations for what was to come. The ceremony began with speeches from each of the major powers. The Vorthan Republic's insectoid ambassador spoke about the benefits of cooperation between species. The Nexari Dominion's representative discussed the importance of peace for galactic prosperity. Each speech was beautiful and inspiring, hiding the truth that they were all lies. Jake took his turn at the podium and delivered the speech that Helen had helped him prepare. He talked about humanity's hopes for the future and their gratitude for being accepted into the galactic community. Every word was sincere, which made it even more effective as misdirection. "We come to this treaty not as conquerors or supplicants," Jake said, looking directly at Admiral Kethril, "but as partners, ready to contribute our unique perspective to the challenges that face all civilized beings." The alien delegates applauded enthusiastically, knowing that these would be among the last words any human leader would ever speak in public. Jake saw the satisfaction in their eyes and felt a cold anger that he carefully kept hidden behind his diplomatic smile. Below the ceremony hall, Joey Barnes moved through the maintenance tunnels with the confidence of someone who belonged there. He had spent months learning every system aboard Unity's Promise, gaining the trust of the alien maintenance crews who saw him as just another human technician doing routine work. The microcharges he placed were so small that they would not show up on any scan, but when activated they would disable the station's main power grid and communication systems. The aliens would find themselves trapped on a dead station, just as they thought they were springing their perfect trap. Amy Johnson was monitoring the situation from her position in the communications center. Her official job was to ensure that the ceremony was broadcast properly across the galaxy, but her real purpose was to control what messages went out when the fighting started. "All networks are ready," she reported through the hidden communication system. "When this goes public, every species in the galaxy will see exactly who the real aggressors are." Captain Danny White floated in space aboard the merchant vessel, Peaceful Trader, one of dozens of ships that had brought human delegations and media representatives to the ceremony. His cargo holds were full of mining equipment and agricultural supplies, at least according to his manifest. In reality, the ship's hull contained retractable weapon systems that could transform a peaceful freighter into a heavily armed gunship in less than 60 seconds. The mining equipment was actually military-grade sensors and communication jammers, while the agricultural supplies were high-explosive charges designed to disable larger warships. The treaty signing reached its climax as each delegation approached the central podium to place their seals on the historic document. Jake watched Admiral Kethril's face carefully and saw the moment when the alien leader gave an almost imperceptible signal to someone in the crowd. Operation Cleansing Dawn had begun. Across human space, alien fleets dropped out of hyperspace around major colonies and strategic installations. The Zephyrians targeted the industrial worlds. The Crystalline Collective aimed for research facilities. The Vorthan Republic moved against agricultural planets, and the Nexari Dominion struck at communication hubs. They expected to find helpless, human settlements with minimal defenses, easy targets for a quick and decisive campaign that would eliminate humanity as a galactic power. Instead, they found Captain Eric Stone's hidden defense fleet waiting for them. The research station orbiting New Terra revealed itself to be a heavily armed fortress as its disguised weapon systems came online. The mining platforms around the outer colonies activated shield generators and missile batteries that had been hidden for decades. Merchant ships throughout human space shed their peaceful facades and became warships. Dr. Kevin Ross's medical research facility released clouds of nanobots designed specifically to disrupt alien life support systems. The Vorthan bioweapons that were supposed to kill human colonists instead found their own ships filled with hostile organisms that attacked their respiratory systems. Back on Unity's Promise, Jake finished signing the treaty and looked up to see Admiral Kethril's confident smile faltering as reports started coming in from the attack fleets. The alien had been expecting reports of easy victories, but instead he was hearing about fierce resistance and unexpected losses. "Is everything all right, Admiral?" Jake asked with perfect innocence. Before Kethril could answer, the lights in the ceremony hall began to flicker. Joey Barnes had activated his charges, and Unity's Promise was losing power throughout its main sections. Emergency lighting came on, casting strange shadows across the assembled delegates. "Technical difficulties," Helen announced calmly to the crowd. "Please remain calm while our engineers address the situation." But Jake could see the panic beginning to spread among the alien delegates as they realized that their communication with their fleets had been cut off. They were trapped on a disabled station, blind and helpless just as they had planned for humanity to be. Amy Johnson's voice echoed through the station's emergency communication system as she began broadcasting to the galaxy. "This is Unity's promise reporting that we have discovered evidence of a planned attack on human colonies by allied alien forces. We are transmitting full documentation of this conspiracy to all civilized worlds." The evidence that Dr. Laura Thompson's team had compiled over decades went out across every communication network in the galaxy. Recordings of secret meetings, documents showing the planned genocide, proof of decades of manipulation and oppression by the older civilizations. Captain Danny White's ship and dozens of others like it revealed their true nature as they surrounded the alien escort vessels that had brought the delegations to the ceremony. The aliens found themselves outgunned by ships they had dismissed as harmless cargo haulers. Jake looked around the ceremony hall at the shocked faces of beings who had thought they were the predators. "I believe we need to renegotiate the terms of this treaty," he said calmly. "Humanity has some concerns about the current agreement." Admiral Kethral's forearms were shaking as reports continued to pour in from the failed offensive. Human resistance was not just fierce, it was coordinated and prepared. Decades of careful planning were unraveling as the aliens discovered that their prey had become the hunters. "This is impossible," the crystalline representative said, its voice no longer sounding like pleasant wind chimes. "Humans do not have this kind of military capability." "You are correct," Jake replied. "We do not have your kind of military capability. We have something much better. We have the kind of military capability that belongs to a species that never forgot how to plan for betrayal." The reports flooding into Unity's promise painted a picture that no alien leader had expected to see. Captain Eric Stone's first human strike fleet was not just defending human colonies, it was launching coordinated attacks on alien military installations across 3 star systems. Admiral Kethral stared at his communication device as message after message brought news of disaster. The Zephyrian Third Fleet had been ambushed near the Centauri system by ships that seemed to appear from nowhere. The attack force heading for New Earth had found itself facing automated defense platforms that deployed faster than any known technology should allow. "How is this possible?" the Crystalline Collective's representative demanded, its diamond-like body flickering with stress patterns. "Our intelligence showed that humans had minimal military assets." Jake Morrison smiled as he watched. The alien delegate struggled to understand what was happening. "Your intelligence was looking at what we wanted you to see. The real question is how you could believe that a species which survived thousands of years of warfare on their home planet would enter galactic politics without adequate preparation." Helen Carter was coordinating with human agents across the galaxy through her secure communication device. Agent Nick Turner was reporting from deep inside Zephyrian space, where 3 major shipyards had mysteriously suffered catastrophic system failures. Dr. Emma Rodriguez had successfully disabled the main power grid for the crystalline research network, leaving their most advanced laboratories dark and helpless. "Turner has been in place for 4 years, Helen explained to the shocked alien representatives. "Rodriguez spent 6 years earning your trust while learning how to shut down your most critical systems. They are not spies who happen to be in useful positions. They are assets who were placed specifically for this day." Ryan Brooks was receiving tactical updates from human military commanders across the galaxy. The aliens had expected their surprise attack to cripple human resistance within hours, but instead they were discovering that every human world had been prepared for exactly this scenario. Commander Beth Hughes reports successful evacuation of all non-essential personnel from frontier colonies, Ryan announced. Tony Clark confirms that automated defense systems are operating at full efficiency. Dr. Kevin Ross has deployed countermeasures against all known alien bioweapon systems. The Vorthon Republic's insectoid ambassador was clicking its mandibles in distress as it tried to reach its military commanders. "Our bioweapons are designed to target human physiology specifically. They cannot simply be neutralized." "They can. If you have spent 50 years studying alien biology and developing specific countermeasures," Dr. Alan Foster replied from his position near the communication equipment. "Dr. Ross has been working on that problem since first contact. He knows more about Vorthon bioweapons than most Vorthons do." The emergency lighting in the ceremony hall flickered as Joey Barnes continued his work in the maintenance sections. Unity's promise was not just losing power, It was losing all of its critical systems in a carefully orchestrated sequence designed to leave the alien delegates completely isolated. Amy Johnson's broadcasts were reaching every corner of the galaxy, and the response was immediate and devastating for the alien alliance. Species that had been suppressed for generations were rising up as they realized that the great powers were not as invincible as they had seemed. The Kepler Republic has declared independence from Zephyrian control, Amy reported through the communication system. The Rigel colonies are refusing to provide resources to the Crystalline Collective. The Tau Ceti system has expelled all Vorthan Republic representatives. Captain Danny White and his disguised warships had surrounded the alien escort vessels. But instead of destroying them immediately, he was broadcasting the evidence of the conspiracy directly to their crews. The effect was immediate as many alien military personnel realized they had been ordered to commit genocide. The Zephyrian cruiser Glorious Victory has stood down and is requesting permission to speak with human representatives, Danny reported. Their captain says his crew refuses to participate in what they now understand to be an unprovoked attack on a peaceful species. Jake looked around the ceremony hall at faces that had gone from confident to terrified in the span of an hour. You made one critical error in your planning, he told the alien leaders. You assumed that humans would react to betrayal the same way your species do. You expected us to panic, to scatter, to beg for mercy. Admiral Kethril was still trying to reach his fleet commanders, but the communication jamming systems that Captain Danny White had deployed were making that impossible. What do you want? He finally asked, his voice heavy with defeat. We want what we have always wanted, Helen replied. A galaxy where different species can coexist peacefully without the older civilizations crushing anyone who might threaten their dominance. Commander Paul Anderson's engineering corps had completed the deployment of Prometheus project platforms around every major human world and were now extending the network to protect smaller colonies and allied species. Each platform was a marvel of human engineering, capable of defending an entire star system against a fleet. The defense grid is fully operational, Paul reported through secure channels. We can protect not just human space but any species that requests our assistance. Dr. Laura Thompson's xenobiology team was having an even greater impact as their evidence of alien government corruption spread across the galaxy. Populations that had lived under authoritarian rule for centuries were demanding answers from their leaders. The Zephyrian colony worlds are in open revolt, Laura reported. The Crystalline Collective is facing strikes across their industrial network. The Vorthan Republic's client species are declaring independence. The Nexari Dominion is dealing with massive civil unrest. The Alien Alliance was not just losing a military campaign. It was collapsing from within as their own people turned against governments that had planned genocide in their name. The careful unity that had taken generations to build was crumbling in a matter of hours. Agent Grace Miller's voice came through the communication system from her position deep inside Vorthan territory. I have convinced the Vorthan military command that their government has been infiltrated by extremist elements. They are arresting their own political leaders for war crimes. The Nexari Dominion representative looked around the ceremony hall with growing desperation. This cannot be happening. The plan was perfect. Humans were supposed to be eliminated quickly and quietly. The plan was perfect for destroying a species that had no idea what was coming, Jake agreed. Unfortunately for you, humans have been expecting this kind of betrayal since the day we first met another intelligent species. We just spent 50 years preparing for it. Ryan Brooks was coordinating the broader strategic situation as human forces transitioned from defense to offense. Captain Eric Stone reports that alien military installations throughout the sector are either surrendering or being systematically disabled. Resistance is collapsing as their crews realize they are fighting an unjust war. The tide of battle had turned completely. What was supposed to be a quick and decisive campaign to eliminate humanity had become a disaster that was destroying the Alien Alliance and exposing decades of oppression and manipulation. The Andorian Federation has requested human protection, Amy Johnson announced. The Proxima colonies are asking for assistance in establishing independent government. The entire Outer Rim is declaring neutrality and requesting human mediation. Jake looked at the alien leaders who had planned humanity's destruction and felt not triumph but sadness. This did not have to happen, he told them. We came here genuinely hoping for peace and cooperation. You chose to see that hope as weakness, instead of strength. Helen Carter was already working on the next phase of human planning. We are prepared to offer amnesty to any alien personnel who laid down their weapons and refused to participate in the genocide. We are also ready to provide humanitarian assistance to any species seeking to establish independent government. The great ceremony hall that was supposed to witness the signing of a peace treaty had instead become the command center for humanity's emergence as the galaxy's new dominant power, not through conquest, but through the simple act of refusing to be victims. 6 months after the failed betrayal at Unity's Promise, Jake Morrison stood before the newly constructed Galactic Council building on Terra Nova. The gleaming structure was built in a style that honored all species, with architectural elements from dozens of different civilizations. It was a symbol of what the galaxy could become when cooperation replaced domination. The old Galactic Federation had collapsed within weeks of the conspiracy's exposure. The Zephyrian Empire had shattered into 17 independent regions, most of them governed by former military officers who had refused to participate in the genocide. Emperor Thane was facing trial for war crimes on his home world, his once mighty empire reduced to a single star system. Helen Carter walked beside Jake as they approached the council chambers. She now carried the title of Galactic Chancellor, elected by representatives from over 200 species. Her first act had been to establish the principle that no species could claim authority over another based solely on age or technological advancement. The Proxima delegation is still concerned about the reparations, Helen said, reviewing her notes for the day's session. They want guarantees that the Crystalline Collective will compensate them for 2 centuries of resource extraction. Jake nodded. The Crystalline Collective had withdrawn from galactic politics entirely after their government fell to internal revolution. Their replacement leadership was struggling to address the damage caused by generations of exploiting younger species while claiming to be their protectors. Captain Lisa Barnes approached them from the security checkpoint. She now headed the Galactic Intelligence Service, a new organization designed to prevent any future conspiracy from developing in secret. Her agents came from dozens of species, including many former alien military personnel who had refused to follow illegal orders. The morning briefing is ready, Lisa reported. We have confirmed reports of 3 more species requesting membership in the Free Worlds Alliance. The Rigel colonies have voted to join the Mutual Defense Pact, and the Kepler Republic is asking for assistance in establishing their own intelligence service. The Free Worlds Alliance was humanity's answer to the old Federation's authoritarian structure. Instead of being ruled by the oldest and most powerful civilizations, it was governed by democratic principles that gave every member species an equal voice in decisions that affected them. Ryan Brooks had traded his military uniform for civilian clothes, but his role as Director of Galactic Security kept him busy coordinating defense efforts across hundreds of worlds. The Prometheus Project platforms were now protecting not just human space but any species that requested assistance against potential aggressors. Commander Paul Anderson reports that the defense grid expansion is ahead of schedule, Ryan told Jake as they entered the council building. We now have coverage for every major trade route and population center in the Alliance territory. Dr. Alan Foster was waiting for them in the main corridor, surrounded by a group of young beings from various species. His xenolinguistics program at the New Galactic University was training the next generation of translators and cultural specialists. His students included former enemies who were now working to build bridges between civilizations. Admiral Morrison, one of the students called out, a young Zephyrian whose blue skin showed the darker markings of stress. My parents were part of the resistance movement that opposed the war. They died fighting against their own government's tyranny. I want to thank humanity for giving us the chance to build something better. Jake felt the familiar weight of responsibility as he looked at the young alien. So many beings had suffered because of the failed conspiracy, not just humans but citizens of the aggressive powers who had been betrayed by their own leaders. Your parents died as heroes, Jake told the student. The galaxy is better because people like them chose to do what was right instead of what was easy. The council session began with reports from various committees working on the massive task of rebuilding galactic civilization. Agent Grace Miller, now serving as coordinator for the Species Liberation Program, presented updates on 17 different worlds that were establishing independent governments with human assistance. The Vorthan Republic's former client species are adapting well to self-governance, Grace reported. Most have requested continued technical assistance but not political oversight. They want to build their own futures without outside interference. Captain Danny White had returned to merchant service, but his cargo ships now carried something more valuable than trade goods. They transported hope in the form of medical supplies, educational materials, and technological assistance to species that were rebuilding after generations of oppression. The humanitarian fleet has delivered aid to 43 worlds this month, Danny reported through the communication network. We are seeing remarkable progress in areas that were previously underdeveloped due to resource extraction by the former colonial powers. Dr. Emma Rodriguez was leading a scientific exchange program that shared human technology freely with any species that requested it, but with strict safeguards to prevent it from being used for aggressive purposes. Her work was helping to ensure that the technological advantages that had made humanity's defense possible would benefit everyone. We have established research partnerships with 37 different species, Emma reported. The cooperative approach is producing innovations that none of us could have achieved alone. Science flourishes when it is not constrained by political boundaries. The Nexari Dominion had survived the collapse better than the other conspirators, largely because their population had immediately turned against the government officials who had planned genocide. Their new leadership was working closely with human advisors to establish democratic institutions. The Nexari transition government has requested assistance in drafting a new constitution, Helen announced to the council. They want to ensure that their species never again falls under the control of leaders who would commit such crimes. Joey Barnes was part of the engineering team that had designed the new council building's communication systems. His work ensured that every species could participate in debates regardless of their biological limitations or technological capabilities. No one would ever again be excluded from important decisions because they could not be heard. Amy Johnson had established the Galactic News Network, providing unbiased reporting to every world in Alliance space. Her commitment to transparency meant that no government could hide its actions from its own people or from the broader galactic community. Public information access has increased by over 3,000% since the establishment of the new communication protocols, Amy reported. Informed populations make better decisions and are much harder for authoritarian leaders to manipulate. Tony Clark and his engineering teams were working on the most ambitious project in galactic history, a network of space stations that would serve as neutral meeting grounds for any species seeking to resolve disputes peacefully. Each station would be protected by Prometheus platforms and staffed by personnel from multiple civilizations. The first peace station will be operational within 2 years, Tony announced. It will provide a safe space for negotiations between species that might otherwise resort to warfare. Dr. Kevin Ross had expanded his medical research to benefit all species, developing treatments for diseases that had plagued various civilizations for centuries. His work exemplified the human approach to galactic citizenship, using superior capabilities to help others rather than dominating them. The Interspecies Medical Exchange Program has identified cures for 43 previously incurable conditions, Kevin reported. Cooperation produces results that competition never could. Captain Eric Stone now commanded the Alliance Defense Force, a military organization that included personnel from dozens of species working together to protect freedom rather than enforce oppression. His ships bore the symbols of all member civilizations, representing unity through diversity. The joint training exercises continue to exceed expectations, Eric reported. Former enemies are learning to work together as they realize that their real conflict was never with each other, but with systems that pit civilizations against one another. Dr. Laura Thompson's evidence of alien government corruption had become the foundation for the Galactic Justice Tribunal, which was working to ensure that the officials responsible for planning genocide would face appropriate consequences. Her work had also revealed the scope of oppression that many species had endured for generations. The tribunal has now processed over 2,000 cases of government abuse, Laura announced. Justice moves slowly, but it is moving. No one who participated in planning genocide will escape accountability. Jake looked around the council chamber at representatives from species that had been enemies just months earlier, but were now working together to build a better future. The treaty that was supposed to enable humanity's destruction had instead become the foundation for the galaxy's salvation. A young crystalline being approached Jake after the session, its diamond-like body reflecting the light in patterns that indicated deep emotion. "My people were taught that humans were dangerous because you change so quickly," it said in a voice like distant music.